Hi folks, and welcome to what is essentially the first episode of the Scrambler Project. If you've seen my kind of initial unveiling of the bike, you'll know the story behind this, but it's time to actually get some parts on to this bike, and what I thought I'd do was start with that messy front end there. It also gives me an opportunity to show you a new toy that I've got in the cave, which will help with this build. So let's get on with it. Before we crack on with the rest of the video, let's just have a quick look at this new toy, and it is this, an ABBA Stands Skylift. If you've not seen one of these before, it's an incredible piece of kit. It is a bike lift, hydraulically operated, and you can fit all manner of bikes on it. All you need to do is change the fitting kit on here that bolts or pushes into the swing arm, should I say. And with this stand, you can lift the bike in its entirety, you can lift the back end, you can lift the front end, so plenty of flexibility. And I've got these adapters for the Scrambler, for the Africa Twin and the GSX 8S, so you're going to see a lot of this in future videos. I am going to make a separate video on this, so I'm not going to go through all what it is and what it can do in this video. What I'm going to do is get the bike onto it, get it up in the air so we can get on with what's going on to the bike, and that means it's probably a good time to tell you exactly what is going to be fitted. How handy is that? And look at the access we've now got to the underside of the bike. And it is, I think, quite a messy underside. Obviously, we've got the oil filter sticking out here, which is quite exposed. We've got a lot of pipe work and bits and pieces going on. Now, although I'm not really going to take this off-road, I'd like to get some protection on that. Ducati do make their own bash guard, which is a small aluminium piece that fits over here. So I had a look online at what else was available, and one of the first names that came up was Evotech. Now, I've used their bits in the past. I've got a tail tidy on the GSX 8S, which you'll see in another video, and they make a really nice bash guard for this, a cover for the oil cooler and one for the rectifier, and they're very nicely priced. So I slapped my credit card on the table, ordered those up, and they've arrived ready to go on the bike. One of the things I like about Evotech is the parts are really nicely made, real high quality, really good finish, but they're packaged really nicely as well. Now, I've given this a bit of a clean up. It's not perfect, but it'll do for now. And I can see already I've got a few little paint chips and bits and pieces on here. This has been used off-road, this bike. So this bit is just open to stones being flung up against it. And this is where I think the Evotech one offers a bit of an advantage, because it not only covers the oil filter and all of that gubbins down there, it also runs up and adds a bit of protection up the top here, and it looks pretty good too. So let's get this on. For fitting instructions, you need to go to the Evotech website. They will either have a very comprehensive set of illustrations to take you through it, or an actual installation video on the site. First job is to remove these two bolts at the bottom here, and then this bracket goes in there using the same OEM factory bolts, and they're torqued to 10 Newton meters. So that's the first bracket in place. The second bracket goes onto the exhaust header bolts. So just have to whip those off. I'm going to dab a little bit of copper slip on those just to stop them seizing at some point in the future. And then this bracket mounts on there like that. Now, in the instructions it shows that this bolt here replaces this, so you unscrew this, take that clip out and put this in place, and then reroute this cable behind the fairing. But the fairing in the image is different to this, so I think the instructions are potentially for the previous model, and this is already sort of clamped well out of the way. It doesn't interfere with what's going on, so I'm just going to leave that in place and just make sure that that plate clears that. Yeah, that doesn't touch that at all, so I'm just going to leave that in place. I'm assuming the instructions were for the previous model, because that's not in the way, and this is a completely different look to what's in the instructions. Obviously the brackets have got captive nuts in them. And it's a simple thing, but I like the fact that they supply black bolts so that it all blends in quite nicely. Seems like an obvious thing to do, but I've fitted accessories like this where they don't bother and they just use standard stainless steel ones and they stand out like a sore thumb. And that's it, really simple installation, but that looks so much better already and it's offering important protection. So now let's turn our attention to the regulator. And this is another simple fix. It's just a nice little cover that goes over that. All you need to do is to take the standard bolts out, fit the spacer behind, bolt them back in with the new bolts. And these don't need to be tight, you just need to make sure that the rectifier is seated properly and then just give them a little nip. So there you go, another bit protected, and the last bit is the oil cooler. The fitting of the oil cooler cover is a tiny bit more involved because we've got to take this side panel off to gain access. That gives me another opportunity for a little bit of a clean up. See, already we've got a couple of little bits of damage to the fins here. It's obviously a very exposed piece. So even on the road, you're going to flick bits and pieces up onto this. So it's best to get it covered. Now this essentially just clips over the cooler. So to make sure it doesn't rattle or make any noise, they supply some foam that just sticks on the inside of here and a little piece on the bottom just to stop it from rattling and making a noise. So one piece on here. Then there's a piece that sits on the underside of here and here, all expertly done. And then it is a case of hooking that over the top, giving it a bit of a stretch, so it's a nice snug fit. And there, bang, that's on. No nuts and bolts, and I can just put the other bit back on and the job's done. There you have it, simple job made even easier with the use of the ABBA stand. To be able to get the bike in this position has made doing this really simple. Obviously it's not that tricky to do. You could do it with the bike on the side stand. It's just a little bit more tricky to get to these bits under here. You're going to have to be laying on the floor to do that. But I think these improve the looks of this front end, but more importantly, they add that protection. That oil filter and all of these cables here are protected, and it runs all the way up to the top here, as opposed to the Ducati one that just goes to here. The oil cooler is very exposed, so getting that to stop stones hitting that is good. And the cover for the rectifier is more of a nice finisher actually. The rectifiers never look that nice, so putting behind that is good. All in all, really nicely priced. I'll put the price of those items on the screen. But I have to say that I'm really impressed with Evotech stuff whenever I've used it. I'm not affiliated to Evotech in any way. I paid for these parts with my own money. From the moment I ordered them, that whole process was nice and slick. Lots of communication on what was going on. They arrived pretty quickly. And as you can see, they're brilliantly manufactured. They fit perfectly and they look good too and offer that protection. So definitely worth going to check out. That's it for this video. I wanted to keep it relatively brief. I've been ordering a few parts to go onto this bike. I've decided that I don't really like those high bars. When I first rode it, I thought this is nice, but the novelty soon wore off and I'm looking for something a little bit lower. So I've got a set of bars to go on here. I've got some new brake pads and rotors to go on. Not that this needs them, but I thought I might as well go down that route whilst I'm doing that. And I'm probably going to change the colour of the wheels and certainly change the tyres. So that may well all go into that brake video, because if I'm going to take the wheels off to replace all of that stuff, that's the point. I get these tyres off, get these powder coated, and then get it all back together again. At the moment, I think the wheels are going to go pale gold, a bit like the Full Throttle, largely because that's going to tie in with the colour scheme that I'm going for. I'm a little bit tied with this because of this. I don't know if that will come off. It is obviously a sticker that's over the top, but I don't know if it's been lacquered over, and I don't know what it's going to look like if I take it off. And that's quite nice, but if I change away from the Ducati red, I've got this on here, so it kind of makes sense to change the wheels. But they're all to come. I've got a seat arriving, an exhaust arriving, and a few other bits and pieces. So keep an eye on the channel. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, then you'll get notified of all new videos that come through, and it really does help me. So thanks for watching, and until next time, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.